Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for checking out my channel. In this video, I'm going to continue on TrueNAS, and we're going to be looking at jails, plugins, and virtual machines. At the end of the video, I'm going to also show you guys how to deploy nextcloud and how to configure it and get something like your phone connected to it. Now let's navigate to the jail section. Now when you open the jail section for the first time, you're going to be prompted to select a data store that will be used to run your jails. So I'm going to choose data store 1. And when you make that selection, what happens in the background is that the TrueNAS system is going to go ahead and create a data set for our jails, and that data set is named IO-Cage. And now IO-Cage is the container manager that is used to create your jails. And one thing you need to understand is that with the jail architecture on TrueNAS, it's kind of similar to what you have with Docker. So jails are a form of operating system level virtualization. So they kind of isolate applications from each other and from the TrueNAS system, but they all share the same underlying operating system, which is FreeBSD. Now, when you create a jail, you're given the opportunity to select a specific operating system, right? But you're only limited to FreeBSD releases. Now, when you select that, you can have multiple applications run off from that specific FreeBSD release. So any jail or any application that is running inside of that jail is actually sharing the same operating system. Now, to make this really easy to understand, I created a diagram, and you can see that we have our TrueNAS system, and then we have our FreeBSD right here. Now we have IO-Cage, which is our container manager, and then we have our jails that are running on top of it. Now, when you have applications running in a jail, they are isolated from any other jails that are present on that system and the main operating system as well. Now, this offers a layer of security, so that way if one of your jails is compromised, then that threat is only limited to that specific jail rather than being spread out to the entire system and compromising a bunch of other stuff in your environment. Alright, so now we're going to go back and then start our jail creation. Alright, so to create a new jail, just click on add. Now we're going to have to name it, I'm going to call this jail 1. Oh no, let me put that as main jail. Now for jail type, we have two options, either a base jail or a clone jail. Now with a clone jail, the system actually clones a specific release or FreeBSD release, and then it's going to attach that to that jail, and this jail will forever be attached to that specific FreeBSD version. And even if you upgrade the version, it's still going to be linked to that specific version. But with a base jail, it's not linked. So when you create the jail with a specific FreeBSD release, it's just going to have that release for the main time. But when you upgrade, then the system fully upgrades to the new release version. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select clone jail. Now for FreeBSD versions, we have a bunch of different releases, but I'm going to go ahead and choose the latest, which is 12.3 release. Now you have two options to create jails. You can either use the wizard, which is what we're doing right now, or you can use the advanced jail creation tool, which will give you a lot more freedom as to what you can set up for your jail. So you can set up configure networking. On the networking, you have a bunch of different options that you can configure. You can do again, some of these options we're going to be looking at them from the wizard, okay? But with the advanced jail creation tool, you have a lot more flexibility to fine-tune the jail setup or configuration as you want. But I'm not going to be using this. I'm going to go ahead and use the wizard jail. I'm going to leave that on clone jail release version. We'll go ahead with 12. Click on next. Now on the networking, we're presented with three options. If you wanted your jail to just automatically pick up an IP address from your DHCP server on your network, then you can go ahead and select the DHCP autoconfig option. But one downside to this configuration is that IP address will change as time goes on, because with DHCP, those IP addresses are actually leased out. So if for some reason, let's say your TrueNAS system goes offline and you're not and the system is unable to renew its lease with the DHCP server, then that IP address will be dropped. And when that IP address is dropped, you won't be able to use that IP address to connect to that specific jail. Now, another option that you can use is NAT, and what this does is it's going to run this and it will use the main IP address of your TrueNAS system. But the best option is to set up VNet so that you have a separate IP address for your TrueNAS system. So you have a separate IP address for your jail. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in this tutorial. So under default interface, if your system has multiple NICs, then you can go ahead and select that, or you can leave that on auto and the system is going to choose which one. Now for our interface, I'm going to go ahead and use this one because that's the only one that I have. IP address, I'm going to be using 30. I'll do 30. And then for the net mask, I'm going to use 24. That's my network. And then your default router. Now, if you wanted to configure IPv6, you can go ahead and do that as well. I'm not really going to be doing that. I'm going to go ahead and click on next. Now, these are the configurations that the system is going to use to create our jail. Now, this process is going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to fast forward this process and I'll come back when when the installation is complete. Now, part of the jail creation process is that the system is going to go ahead and download that specific FreeBSD release that we have selected earlier. And so that is why the process is going to take a little bit of time. But depending on your internet connection, it should be a little bit faster if your internet connection is actually fast. Alright guys, so our jail has been created. And you can see more information about it by expanding on this little button right here. And so we have the jail IP address. If you wanted to edit and make changes to it, you can click on this edit button right here. If you wanted to update, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just do that right now. Updates available. Okay, so I think we have the latest. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start. But before we do that, I just want to show you guys mount points. Now, so if you wanted to do like a custom storage, outside of your jail, then you can configure that as a mount point. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And the only way you can add a mount point is if your jail is offline or shut down. So I'm going to go ahead and click on mount point, and I'll just I'm going to add one. So click on actions, add. Okay, yeah, the jail was running. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it. Alright, so now that our jail is no longer running, we can add new mount points. I'm going to click on add, and then now we have to provide the location for or the source that we want to mount and where we want to mount it inside of our jail. So this is our jail file system right here. all of this is our jail file system. And then this is our external TrueNAS system. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this, and I don't really have a lot of stuff on this TrueNAS system since it's still new, but I do have some ISO images from in here. So I'm going to mount the ISO image directory inside of our jail, and I'm going to do that in /mount, and then you can go ahead and click on submit. So now that we have created a mount point, we can go ahead and start our jail. Now, when your jail is running, you have two ways of connecting to the jail. You can either connect to the jail from the shell right here, or you can connect from it from the main TrueNAS shell. So first we're going to start with the shell here, and when you click on that button, it's just going to log you in as root. And then first off, let's check the directory that we just added, or the mount point that we added to our jail. So I'm going to go ahead and do an ls nmt, and you can see that the contents of that mount point are now available from within our jail. Okay, so this is an example of how you can add mount points to your jail, and you can also have an application in here that will run and store its data into a specific mount point that has its main storage outside of the jail, which is another way of keeping your stuff in one place. So now that we're able to connect to our jail directly from the shell, I'm going to show you guys how to do that from the TrueNAS shell. So when you come back to the TrueNAS shell, you're logged into it. Just clear. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. And then to log into our jail from this TrueNAS shell, you're going to run iocage console, and then the name of our jail, which will be main jail. Okay, there you go. So now we are actually logged into our jail. Okay, and just to verify this, if I ls /mnt again, we can see that we have access to the mount point that we had added earlier. Now, once you're inside your jail, you can set up users, groups. You can do a lot of different things. But one thing I want you to understand is that whatever you do inside of your jail, remember, it's isolated from the rest of your TrueNAS system and other jails that are running on your system. So, for example, if we wanted to create a new user right now, all right, so let's go ahead and create a user. So I'm going to do add user, and then they're going to ask us for the username. Provide that, full name, UUID, I'm going to leave that as default. Login group, I'm going to leave that as that. Login group is invite third to other groups. We're going to do wheel. Login class, I'm going to leave it as default. The default shell, they don't have my favorite shell, which is bash, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as default, so sh. The home directory is fine. The home directory permissions, I'm going to take the default permissions right now. User-based authentication, yes, because you want to be able to log in. Use an empty password, no. So we're going to have to provide a password, and we don't want to use a random password. We're going to provide our own password. Alright, so now to lock the account after creation, no. Alright, so now just make sure you cross-check everything and make sure that the entries are correct as you want it, and then you can just go ahead and type yes and press enter, and then our user has been created. Now if you wanted to create multiple users, you can go ahead and do this as well. I'm going to go ahead and say no, but now we have our user, and we can actually issue to that user. And now we'll now switch to the new user that we just created. Okay, and there's a lot of things that we can do from here So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna issue back to root, and now there's a lot of cool things that you can do from your jail, right? You can launch a bunch of applications. You can actually use your jail as a web server, so you can install nginx into your jail, and then you can do a lot of different cool stuff with it. Now, when you want to install applications, you need to make sure that those applications are supported by FreeBSD, because the underlying operating system is FreeBSD. Now, there's this website, freshports.org. I'm going to leave a link to this website in the description. Now, you can actually use this or access this website to search for packages that are supported or that you can run on your jail. And an example is search for nginx. And you can see that we have this are the information for nginx. So if you wanted to install nginx on your jail, you can go ahead and do this here, and it has a lot of packages. So first off, let's go ahead and install nginx real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and say package install nginx. If you actually want to fetch it, say yes. It's going to go ahead and search, then it's going to download and install it. Process, say yes. Alright, so now that our nginx has been installed, we're going to go ahead and enable and then start it. So service nginx enable and service nginx start. Alright, so now that our nginx has been started, we can actually check the status of it. Nginx status, and we can see that our nginx server is actually running. So let's try to access it from our web browser. So 10.0. I'm gonna go 30, and you guys can see that our nginx is up and running. So now this nginx is actually running from within. Now this nginx server is actually running from within our jail, which is really cool, right? And there's a bunch of applications. You can actually have WordPress as well. You can actually have WordPress, installed on your jail, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can actually host a WordPress website from your jail. Now, if you guys want me to do something like that, let me know in the comment section. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do from your jail, and again, it's totally isolated from the operating system itself, so it's really cool. All right, so I hope you guys understood jails. Again, I have this. If this illustration, I think, makes it easier for you to be able to understand how. Yeah, so now we're going to move on and go to plugins. Now, plugins are similar to what we just did with nginx, right? A plugin, when you install a plugin, what you're actually doing is installing an application inside of a jail, because during that plugin creation, a separate jail will be created to host that specific application. So that's why I wanted us to first of all cover jails before we move into plugins, because it will make it easier to really understand the entire process. But before going to plugins, let's look at virtual machines real quick. Now, virtual machines in TrueNAS, they act normally like any other hypervisor. in virtual machines on your TrueNAS system, you want to make sure that virtualization has been enabled from the BIOS. Okay, so in order for you to enable virtualization on your BIOS, you need to reboot the system, and you need to press something like F2 or F9, depending on the manufacturer, to get into the BIOS settings. Now, when you're in the BIOS settings, you want to navigate to security. Now, under security, you want to look for a device for virtualization. Now, sometimes it might, for example, in my system right here, they have virtualization under device security. So when you move on to device security, you can see that virtualization technology was disabled. So you want to go ahead and enable this, and then make sure that you save this configuration and then exit out of it. When you exit out of a BIOS, you just allow your system to boot normally, and then you can come back to this process. So to create a virtual machine, it's pretty simple and direct. Just go ahead and click on add, and then you're going to be asked to select a guest operating system. I'm going to go ahead and choose Linux. Now for the name, I'm going to call this Ubuntu 1. Description, you can provide the description if you want. System clock, I'm not really going to be changing that, but if you want, you can change this to UTC. Boot method, UEFI is fine. Start on boot. Now, if you want the system or the virtual machine to start when your TrueNAS system comes off, so for example, like in a power outage or something like that, and then when your system comes back online, if you want your virtual machine to also be booted at that same time, then you can continue. You can allow this checkbox. Now, I'm gonna uncheck this because I don't want that to happen. Now, you can bind the IP address if you want. I'm gonna go ahead and click next. For the virtual CPU, I'm going to use I'm going to provide 2 cores for this and 2 threads. For the RAM, I'm going to use 1.5. Now remember that when you allocate a specific RAM for your virtual machine, it's taking that RAM from the pool that is available to your TrueNAS system. So if you over allocate it, so for example, in my environment, I have my TrueNAS system has a total of 8 gigabytes of RAM. So if I, for some reason, allocated, let's say 6 gigabytes or 7 gigabytes to this virtual machine, then my TrueNAS system will not have enough RAM to run itself. So that could lead to a bunch of problems. So you want to be cautious when you're allocating your ROM sizes for your virtual machines on your TrueNAS. So 1.5 gigabytes is good for me. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now we need to create a disk image. I'm going to go ahead and select virt.io, and then for our location, now you need to have a location that you want to store your virtual machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel this real quick, and then I'm going to have to create a pool for that. I mean a data set for that, because I don't want it to be anywhere. So create a data set, and I'm going to call this VMs. Submit. Now that we have our data set for the VMs, we can go back to virtual machines, click on add. I'm just going to run through this real quick. On this, click next. Set the RAM to 1.5. This type, I'm going to use virt. Now for data store, you want to move and locate your data store or the data set that you want to install the VM on it. I'm going to use let's say 80 gigabytes for the storage. Now this is for networking. If you have multiple NICs, again, you can select the NIC that you want to use for this specific virtual machine. But I only have one NIC, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as it is. And click on next. Now it asks us to locate our ISO image. So I have an ISO image under data store 1. Go to VM ISO, and then this is our Ubuntu 20 live server. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now these are the options that are going to be used to create our virtual machine. So I'm going to go ahead and click on submit. Alright, so now our virtual machine has been created, but it has not been installed yet. Now again, you can expand on this and you have a lot more options. So if you wanted to add like a new device, right? There's a bunch of devices that you can add to your virtual machine. So when you click on add, you're going to see a bunch of different options. You can select a type of device that you want to add. Now you can add a disk, you can add a file. If you have another NIC that you want to add to that virtual machine, you can go ahead and do that. There's a bunch of things that you can add to it, but I'm not really going to be doing any of that. So go back to virtual machine, expand this, and you can clone the virtual machine to create an identical copy of it. So we're going to go ahead and just start our virtual machine so we can start our installation. The VM could not start because the current configuration could potentially require more RAM. Alright, so right now our system is complaining that we don't have enough RAM to run the virtual machine. Now I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'm going to go ahead and click on proceed because I know I have more RAM than just whatever this is, because it's been showing this for a couple of minutes. But normally if you look at our dashboard, you can see that I have 3 gigabytes of RAM that is free, so I'm not supposed to get that error message. See, we still have 1.4 gigabytes that is free. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue our installation. So now we have our virtual machine running. Let's go ahead and open VNC. And then now we can go ahead and start our installation. So I'm going to go ahead and choose English for the language. Now if you wanted to update the installer, you can select that. I'm going to go ahead and not do that. I'm going to click on done. Done. Navigate down, done. Say yes. Destroy everything on that disk. Name, server name, Ubuntu 1, username, password, done. Install OpenSSH server. Still done. Now these are snap packages which you can go ahead and install on your Ubuntu system as well. There's a bunch of them. You can, if you wanted to deploy nextcloud from, or if you wanted to have nextcloud running on your Ubuntu system, then you can definitely go ahead and do that from these snap packages. It makes it way easier. But I'm not really going to be doing that because I just want the server, and so we're going to click on done. All right, so now the Ubuntu system is going to be installed. This is going to take quite a long time, but I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to come back when this installation is complete. After the reboot, you're gonna need to detach the CD-ROM so that way the system is gonna boot without having to load the ISO image. So that is what I'm going to be doing right now. Go to virtual machine, expand, go to devices. I'm going to click on CD-ROM and I'll delete that. Alright, so now that we've deleted it, we can check and see if this is running. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and restart the virtual machine because it is loading the ISO image again. So I'm going to restart that. But just remember, when you do the restart or the reboot, before the system comes back online, just try to remove the CD-ROM so that way it's not going to load it. Alright, so now we can check again. Press enter, reconnect. Okay. Alright, so you can see that we have successfully installed Ubuntu Server 20.04 on our TrueNAS system, and this is running just like in any other hypervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Oh, using the wrong name. Alright, so I was actually using the wrong password. Alright, so now you can see that we have logged into our TrueNAS system. Alright, so you can see that we have logged into our Ubuntu system that is running from our TrueNAS system. There's a bunch of stuff that we can do. Let's see how much RAM we have. We have a good amount of RAM, and then you can do anything that you want to do, or you can do anything that you would normally do on a virtual machine. For example, in this server, we can go ahead and host whatever application we want, or do whatever we want to do with it. But I'm going to be ending this section of the video on virtual machines right here. If you have any questions, just remember to put that in the comment section. I'm going to be responding to that. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and close this and stop the virtual machine. And if you're enjoying the video, by the way, don't forget to subscribe. Now, as I said earlier, when you install a plugin, the TrueNAS system is going to create a separate jail for that specific plugin, but you can interact with the jail just like any other jail, right? You can attach new mount points to it, and you can do a lot of different things that we've done before for jails. So we're going to go ahead and do our installation for nextcloud. Now remember that there's a lot of different plugins that you can install on your TrueNAS system. And if you click on community, you can see it's a bunch of plugins that you can install. You can even have Grafana running on here. There's GitLab, there's Gittree. It's a bunch of very cool applications that you can run on your TrueNAS system. But I'm going to go ahead and just do nextcloud. So refresh, click on nextcloud, and then click on install. Now this is going to bring up something similar to what we had when we wanted to create our jail. So provide a name for it. I'm going to call it nxcloud. Now for the jail name, I'm going to leave that as nextcloud. Now you have a lot of different options, right? Again, if you wanted to get your IP address or if you wanted to get a separate IP address for your nextcloud application, you can either set it up as a DHCP, or you can specify the specific IP address of that server or of the nextcloud that you want. But what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to use NAT, so that way I'm going to be able to access my nextcloud using my TrueNAS IP address, and the only thing that's going to change is the port. I'm going to be adding the nextcloud port to that IP address, and then I'll be able to access it from the browser. Now, if you wanted to make some advanced configuration, you can open the advanced plugin installation. Again, this is similar to the advanced jail creation tool that we saw earlier. I'm going to go ahead and do save, and then the install process is going to start. I'm going to fast forward the video, and I'll be back when the installation is complete. Alright guys, so our installation is complete. I'm going to close that. Now in order for you to get the installation information, you need to expand this right here and then scroll down, and you're going to see post installation notes. Okay, but first let's try to access our nextcloud. So using this link, I'm going to open a new tab. It right here. Alright, so now we're able to access our nextcloud. So the next thing we need to do is to log into it. Now for you to log in, the username will be ngadmin, and then the password, if you scroll down, you're gonna see post install notes. Now if you click on that, you're gonna get your database name, the user, the database password, then the login username, which is ngadmin, and then your password. So you can go ahead and copy that. Just make sure when you're copying it, you don't have any extra spaces on it. If not, you're gonna have errors when you try to log in. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste that, and then we can log into our nextcloud environment. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and just cancel this tutorial. Alright, so this is the main dashboard. First off, let's first thing we need to do once you have logged into your nextcloud interface is to go to users, and you want to change that password you want to change the password of the default user and the default password, because if not, you're going to have to keep providing that specific IP address or that specific password. So I'm not really going to be doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit. So click on this button right here, and then you can provide a new password. So first I'm going to change the username, and then the password. Now, if you want to provide your email, you can go ahead and do that. The groups, so I'm going to leave this as admin. Now, quota, it's actually amount of storage space that you want to allocate for that specific user. I'm going to leave it as unlimited, and then we can go ahead and click on that. Doesn't look like that was saved. Refresh. You know what? Let's add a new user. Alright, so now we have our user created. Now for this one, I'm going to change that password. Save it. Alright, so now that we've created our new user, the next thing you want to do is to go ahead and move into the settings. Now in the settings, you can actually change or set up a profile. You can provide your email if you want, your phone number, your address, your website. Not really gonna be doing that. Okay. The handle, organization, role, all right, and you can go ahead and actually add a profile image if you want. Let me see, what do we have? Let me use the toucan. Oh, look at that smile. All right, yeah, so that's how you will normally change your profile image. Let's go into security real quick, and then you can change the main, the password for the main user, right? The one that we are currently logged in. So first paste what we got from TrueNAS system, and then change the password, and that has been registered. Now, if you wanted to set up passwordless authentication, then you can go ahead and do that right here. I'm not really going to be doing that right now, but we need to now set up our phone. Now, if depending on what operating system you have on your phone, you can either download the nextcloud app from Google Play or from App Store, and then you're going to need this link to connect your phone to this specific nextcloud instance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Alright, so open, navigate to Play Store. I'm going to search for nextcloud, press enter, and then download. Alright, so now that we have downloaded our nextcloud application, we're going to go ahead and choose login, and then we have to provide this IP address here in order for us to be able to connect to our nextcloud instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 10.0.0.9.8283. And then click on next. Identity of the server could not be verified. That is fine because we don't have SSL installed on the server right now. Alright, so now we need to move on and just click on next, and then they're going to ask us to login. I'm going to be saving that to my LastPass, and then grant access. Now, when you do this for the first time, you're going to need to enable permissions on your phone. So just look for it, and then you just click on this toggle right here, and that should be, and that's it. So now we have our nextcloud connected to our phone, and then you can upload whatever files you want to upload, and you can make whatever changes you want to make. But again, this is the toolkit that we just used for our profile picture on our TrueNAS system. On our nextcloud system. So that's how you can connect that over here. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to go to accessibility. I'm gonna click on dark theme because I don't like the white theme. Now if you had an email server, you can add the information for that email right here. I don't have one, so I'm just gonna skip that. Sharing, I think we've already gone to sharing. Now you can also set up multi-factor authentication. You're gonna need an application like Google Authenticator to be able to do this. Again, you can put in the information right here, but I'm not really going to be doing that right now. Privileges. Alright, so that should be the main settings that I really want to do for now. The next thing we need to do is to go into first off, let's customize our dashboard. So go back to dashboard. Just give it a little bit of time for it to load. And then I'm going to scroll down and click on customize. And you can customize it as you want, right? There's a bunch of different things that you can set. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that background to, let's see. Let's try this one. No, that one looks bad. Yeah, this one looks good. Alright, so we're going to use that as our background. We can definitely get more widgets from the App Store, which I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Since this environment is still, brand new, so there's just very few things that we can do on it. But once I've had like my data and other stuff transferred to this, I'm gonna make a video in like a couple of weeks or so, just to show you guys how my complete setup finally looks like. On unread emails or mails. Do I want to see those? Yes. Important mails. Let's go ahead and choose that. Top mentions. No, I'm not going to be using this with anybody. If I have notes, yes, I want to see the notes. Recommended files, recent activities. Alright, so yeah, that is good for now. But this is our dashboard. I think it looks okay. Alright, so now we have our weather information coming in. I'm going to set my status. Set the status message, and now look at that. Now you can access your files by going to files, and you can create additional directories by clicking on this button right here. You click on documents, and let's say we could name this like let's say for example phone. Press enter, and then we have the directory right here. And then you can store whatever you want to store in here, or you can synchronize this to your phone and have your phone data stored in there. If you want to do pictures, it's the same thing. If you wanted to view your pictures, you click on photos, and it's going to list all the pictures that you currently have on your system. And you can also play videos as well. All right, you can also play videos. All right, so now let's look at apps. Presently, these are the main applications that we have on our nextcloud environment, but we can go ahead and do installation of others. So the first thing I want to do is let's look at customization and see what we can find. Custom menu. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and choose that. Add external sites to your nextcloud navigation. Yeah, I want this. Sidebars, on splash, random photos. Yeah, I'm gonna choose this so that way I get random photos from Unsplash. Around corners. No. Alright, so let's look at dashboards, see what we can find. We can add integrations for a bunch of popular applications like GitHub. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna need that GitHub. If you want GitLab, you can also add that as well. There's analytics. If your environment, if you have Jira in your environment, you can also add that as well. There's Twitter if you want to add Twitter into it. Alright guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the video right here. But these are some of the options that you can set up with your nextcloud environment, and you can do extra customization as you want. If you have any problems with the procedures I've followed in this video, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'm going to be responding to them as soon as possible. I'm going to have more tutorials coming up on a lot of different broad topics. But if you have any requests or any questions, you can leave that in the comment section below. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.